Hey, beautiful souls and creative minds. Welcome to the Artist Stoop, the podcast where we turn the art world into your personal playground. I'm Jillian Zepeda, your host, and I can't wait to dive into the art world with you. Each episode will be kicking it with an incredible artist, unraveling their stories and turning the spotlight on the magic that happens beyond the brush. Get ready to discover new perspectives, forge connections, and immerse yourself one captivating conversation at a time. So grab your favorite beverage, maybe a sketchbook, and let's jump into the kaleidoscope of creativity together. This is the Artist Stoop, where art isn't just a thing you see, it's an experience you feel. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Artist Stoop. Today, our guest is Zack Kidwell. Zack is a third-generation professional artist who was born into a lineage of artistic talent. His father, Brian Kidwell, a renowned assemblage sculptor featured in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, and his grandfather, Al Kidwell, a native of Washington, D.C., studied art at Cordoran School of Art as an abstract artist whose works adorned the Metropolitan Museum of Art and private collections worldwide. Zack inherits a rich legacy. With over 4 years of dedicated experience, Zack demonstrates a keen understanding of visual composition, color, harmony, and storytelling through his conceptual pieces. Zack's distinctive approach lies in representing feelings, emotions, and everyday situations through expressive painting. So, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I am happy to finally have you on. I know we were scheduled a few times. We were briefly talking about that, coordinating children and all that. It just sometimes gets a little out of hand. So, but we're finally here, and
We're here.
we
Let's do it.
yeah. So I met you at the other art fair, and your work just immediately stopped me. One, your personality did. It's one of those things where you're walking and you have this smile, and you could just see, like, one, how proud you were to be there and to
Uh-huh.
represent your work.
Thank you.
And then you
Thank you.
just
I'm gonna. You're gonna make me tear up 30 seconds into this podcast. I. Okay. Real off the top. I'm an emotional person. Like I wear that proudly. So if that happens during this, don't let that scare you or run you off. But that's just kind of me and my personality. So I appreciate those kind of words that's so kind of you to say.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, no, you did. And okay, it might be payback for making me cry when I met you at your booth.
Oh.
No. So you just had, you're the smile, and I could just feel, I'm an energy feeler. I could feel your energy, and you were just have this inviting, welcoming energy. And I was excited to talk to you about your pieces. And yeah, so it was just like when I met you, and then I met your wife and your kids, and it was just like, yep, I need to have him on the podcast. He needs to come on and share his 2 cents and his story with us.
I love that. And I gotta say, you when you said you are an energy person and you can like sense people's energy, you mentioned that I was proud to be there,
Yeah.
and you could not have hit that nail more on the head than you did with that because I was so honored and grateful for the opportunity to participate in the other art fair, and I the fact that that came through to you and other people is just so personally gratifying. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And it really is, as us emerging artists, we make our debuts, we just want people to resonate with our work. It really is, it's so exciting when we do get to show, when we get to actually stand there with our work and say, this is who I am, and finally be able to share, what we've been creating in the studio. Do you feel that? Like, how do you feel about that?
100%. I agree with that. I feel like there's so many feelings I had leading up to that event. Here's actually to back this up a minute, and a weird kind of turn of events. Um, a year prior to the other art fair, I had never exhibited in a show before. I had never, I had all of my work up to that point had been largely through like commission based or referral. That's like the lion's share. Had not had any public exhibition of any kind.
Hmm.
So in 2023, I heard about the other art fair, but I had missed the deadline to apply. But I still wanted to experience it, so I actually applied to be a temporary help, like staff member at the other art fair in 2023, and
The
and
May show?
yeah, yeah, in the May show. And I didn't even get like a call back. I didn't get a message or an email or anything. To be like a volunteer. And then that following year, in 2024 in May, I was an exhibitor. So it was like this like amazing like kind of turn of events that I was just so grateful for that opportunity. But I do agree with you that it is. There were so many emotions leading up to that event, in terms of the amount of work that's required to exhibit and the amount of um, the the everything that goes into it from an emotional standpoint, from a financial standpoint, to a
Hmm.
commitment standpoint. So much of what I believe at my core is that to be for me it's about showing up every day. Like when
Hmm.
I decided to do this professionally, I made a I signed a contract with myself, non-negotiable. This is what's happening every day. Show up, be consistent, put in the work, and the results will happen. It
Yeah.
may not be as fast as I want, but it's going to happen. And so if I just, like I feel like you keep my head down and practice and to get those repetitions in, then I would have an opportunity to share my work with a larger audience. And that's what the other art fair provided. So incredibly grateful for that opportunity. And, I've done, it's going to the other art fair LA, that I got accepted into that one, which I'm very excited about, as well as Red
For
Dot
the
Miami.
fall?
Hmm.
For the fall show in LA?
Hmm.
Oh, that's a good show.
Hmm.
I love. Have you ever been to the hangar?
I
The
have not
hangar?
been to the hangar. I've not been to the hangar.
It's a really cool space. Like really really cool space.
I've seen the videos. I've seen videos and pictures, and it looks amazing. The only thing that I'm still like we're in the process of trying to figure out is the actual economics of it and whether the juice will be worth the squeeze. Because trying to get out there with the pieces and all of the the upfront cost to just exhibit, and
Hmm.
then all the logistics and everything else. It's like, what is my break even point? And
Yeah.
then is it going to be worth it? You know what I mean? So that's what my wife and I are in the process of trying to determine.
It's
Um,
yeah, it's a lot, and it's I think like what a lot of people, collectors or people who don't understand fully the art world and what we as artists have to do, and like the upfront costs and things that we have to put forth. But it's just like the booths to show. It's not like it's not the other art fair showing, and they're not fronting us the cost to just say, oh, come be here. We actually have to pay for the booth. Then, the other art fair, they do take a commission, but it is for their marketing and putting it on and renting the space and X, Y, and Z. But then, yeah, it's just like Dallas is great because you and I were here. So it's just like we got to go home. We could, drive our cars, upload it. But when artists are shipping their work to other places, then you have to pay for plane tickets, hotel fare, making sure that your art does is created properly and shipped properly, and then like how the logistics of everything
the
to
cost to
keep your
do it,
name.
yeah, the cost from going locally to going to a destination show, that goes 2x, 3x, 4x. It becomes exponentially more of an investment. So it's
Yeah.
just, making whether that's the right choice for you. Um, and so that's kind of what I'm figuring out right now. But yeah,
I think, I say it's an investment into yourself if you can truly front the costs and just say go in knowing potentially like if I don't make this back, am I okay? Kind of a thing. And what can be gained from it? and my thing is whenever I did shows where it's just like, okay, if my painting doesn't sell and I'm doing this, will I be okay? I think the amount of networking that you do and the potential clients and the people that you meet sometimes, to me personally, far outweighs the cost of it. I understand, everyone has to understand that we as artists, we're business people. We are a business, but you can grow so much more sometimes when you do go, and
Exactly.
you don't know what else could come down the pipeline. Like a gallery could be there, a big time collector could be there. They might not buy a specific work that's there, but you could be like, hey, here's my portfolio, here's what else I have. And they could be like, oh, that's in where, can I see that, or can we talk about that piece, or can we do a commission? And that's sometimes where the bread and butter ends up coming, um, from those shows rather than selling physically at the show.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a long game, and it's
Hmm.
it's easy to get caught up in the short game, in
Hmm.
the short game of, the the financial short game. But you're right, it's the opportunities that come from, um, the success cannot be measured only in dollars.
Yeah.
It can be measured in opportunities and context, like you said. So, um, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I do it. I really want to know this because, um, in your bio, I find this so fascinating. You do come from a rich legacy. Family, your father, your grandfather, they're also artists. Does that affect you at all in how you show up as an artist? Does it affect your work and like trying to level up or?
It does. It does. I will. There's so many feelings I have about that. And the largest, feeling that consumes me is sheer gratitude. And it's a gratitude that I didn't always have when I growing up as a child, like, growing up around, my father's, studio, and, being around my grandfather who's an artist, and I was, as a kid, that's where we went after school. Like, there wasn't like, before kindergarten, like, I didn't go to like a daycare. I went to my dad's shop, and my sister and I both did. And we, like, we would take naps in boxes of like packing material and stuff. And like, we would, we were there. Like, my mom and my sister and my dad and I, it's like, we were there. And that's where, like, those formative years were spent at my father's shop. And I didn't realize that until recently, or not recently, but as I became older, that those were that was a learning experience, that I am so incredibly grateful to my parents for, and my grandfather. But, I feel like, first of all, I feel like creativity is a muscle that everyone has. I
Yeah.
believe truly everyone has a creative bone in their body
Hmm.
that they just need to exercise, and, you put in that repetition, you exercise it, that muscle becomes stronger, and it becomes better, and you show up, you do it, it gets stronger. And I feel like there's a lot of people who say, oh, I couldn't do that, I don't know how to paint or draw, or I don't that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to just the way of thinking, this way of thinking creatively, the way you look at the world. Um, and at that time when I was a kid, all I thought about was, man, I want to be at the shop. I want to be out playing. I want to go be doing this or doing that. And, um, but it was this learning experience through osmosis, through observation. It's not like I sat down with my dad and my grandfather, and they were like, okay, today we're gonna teach you how to draw or paint or build. It was more like, hey, learning through observation, and
Hmm.
then learning through, doing things with them. Um, and so to say that I am a self-taught artist would be an insult to my family, and something I would never say that, because while I'm certainly not self-taught. I learned by observation through them.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so cool. Just side note, like I I too grew up going to a shop that of an artist. It was my mom worked for an artist. His name was Tom Browning, and he's known for painting Santas. but it was the first time, like, in my life, like, we would walk there after school because it was a small town. We'd walk to the packaging shop, and we had a studio there, and my mom worked for him to the point where it's like she would fill print orders and she would do framing and that kind of stuff. And it was the first time in my life that I saw that you could be a full-time artist, and having that excitement and that joy, saying like, oh, this is someone's actual job.
Hmm.
um and I think it's exciting because when you are a kid and you get to see that, and you, like you said, you learn from observation and growing and all that. But I just think it's a really special thing to have witnessed and experienced, for you to have um, these really great teachers without them being teachers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And
Like in a
and
school
that
setting.
exactly, exactly. And I wasn't a strong. I mean, I was an okay student. I wasn't the strongest student. But what I've learned, I feel like like painting professionally, it truly has changed my life, in ways that I cannot fully probably articulate. But it's changed my life for the better in so many ways that I didn't realize or think I would be ready for until now. Um, as a kid, when at college, I didn't want to be an artist. I saw what being an artist was like for my family. I saw the struggle sometimes that it was of running your own business, and the day to day what was required, and my dad's job wasn't like my friends' dad's jobs. My dad wasn't an accountant, or he didn't wear a suit to work every day like my friends' dads. I was like, this is different. Why can't we just be like these other people? And I'm so grateful that he wasn't, and that I wasn't raised in that environment, because it opened my eyes to a way of viewing things that I wouldn't have necessarily been able to have that perspective. So I'm so grateful to them for um, raising us in a creative environment where no idea is a bad idea. No idea. And I really believe that creativity and like the flow of ideas is kind of passed down through generations.
Mm-hmm.
I always say this. So my grandfather Al, he was a truly gifted artist. So he went to the Corcoran School of Design. He grew up in the projects of DC. Um, he his mother, my great grandmother. She was a unmedicated schizophrenic throughout his
Oh wow.
childhood. He had a very like rough childhood, grew up in the projects. He was street smart, but not book smart, but he had this gift. And when I say he could paint, he could draw, he could sculpt, he could do every creative outlet you can think of. It flowed out of him like water. It would just be turned on a faucet, and it came out of him to a crazy degree. Like, so when he was submitting his portfolio to Corcoran, to get to see if they'd be accepted. All of the other, I guess, portfolios were these beautiful, like, leather bound portfolios that had this beautifully done. And my grandfather's portfolio, he made it out of cardboard.
I was gonna
Um,
say that was why I was like, he probably made it out of cardboard. It was
yeah,
exactly
he
what I
made it
was
out of cardboard,
thinking.
and he made it out of cardboard because that's what was available to him. He didn't
Yeah.
have access. He was resourceful. He thought outside the box, and that's something that my dad has and instilled in me, and I try to instill in my children, just that resourcefulness and thinking outside the box, and all of those things that are just such, time. Time. I feel like time gives us such perspective, and it's
Yeah.
perspective that I have not fully appreciated until becoming older. But now I can say I'm so much gratitude in my heart for those influences.
Mm-hmm. So how do I word this? So does, like, having them, like, I'm gonna say, as their your little Jiminy crickets on your shoulders, like, and whatnot, do they influence, or just the idea of them, do they influence the ideas and how you approach your work? Or is your work 100% you? You know what
Oh
I
no,
mean? You know what I
no,
mean?
no, yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
say?
No, I would never be so bold to claim that that it's all 100% me. That's no, that's not the case with me at all.
Like your style, your voice, what your themes are, like you
Yes, those are mine, but my influences, the things that kind of shaped my how I approach my art, is a combination of my family influences. The my grandfather, he was one that um, he wouldn't sit down and paint with me. Like he would I remember there's times when he would try to teach me to draw and there's photos of us doing stuff together. But after about 10 minutes, his patience for children was over. He was like, "All right, I'm done. I'm out of here. Like I'm good." And so then they when I was like 9 or 10, they moved to Oregon. They lived,
oh,
they lived in McKinney, but then they moved to Oregon. And there's actually a super interesting story.
where in Oregon?
They moved to Cottage Grove, Oregon.
Okay.
But I can tell you this is a side note, but it's a really
Sorry, because
interesting
I'm
story. Okay.
originally kind of an Oregonian, so it's just like,
Okay. All right. Yeah. There we
yeah.
go.
So that's what I was like,
Um,
I needed to know.
so this is kind of cool. Okay. So my grandfather, he after DC, and he became a full-time artist. He in the 60s, he abstract painting, that sort of thing. Then he worked, but his real gift was animation and drawing. And so he worked, did work for Warner Brothers, a lot of companies like that at the time doing animation. Then moved to Dallas, and continued that, working for Warner Brothers, but still he had gallery representation in Dallas. He wasn't famous, but he was prolific.
Hmm.
He did a lot of work. But he in the 80s, he moved up to Prosper, Texas, with my grandmother, and my family and I. We grew up in McKinney. So there, he had a shop in Prosper, and one night he's working at his shop, and it's late. He was a late worker, like he did his best work at night.
Hmm.
And Prosper at that time in the late 80s
Was
or
like
early
nothing.
90s, nothing, like one light town, nobody. Okay, so he gets this knock at his shop door one night, and it's like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And he's like,
Uh-huh.
this is kind of odd. So he goes over to the front door, and he just opens it kind of like slightly, and he
It's
looks,
like,
and yeah, and there's these three dudes standing there, and they're like, hey, our car has broken down. Can we come in and use your phone? And my grandfather says, sure, no problem. Let me just move some boxes and stuff out of the way. You guys can come in. Close the door, deadbolted it, hauled ass out the back of his shop through a field to a neighbor's house. He saw when he opened that door and they said that their car was not running, he saw that the headlights were on and that he could see that that car was running. And because he grew up in DC, and because he grew up in the projects of DC, he had a lot of just street smart and he knew
wow.
something wasn't right. Okay. So he was like, that was really strange. Next morning, he goes to this little cafe in Prosper, like, and he's telling this story to his friend there at this little cafe. And the sheriff, who is happened to be there or came in, he hears Al, my grandfather, telling this story, what happened. And he says to Al, he's like, hey, we need to talk. We got to talk about something. So the night before, after those guys left my grandfather's shop, they went down the road to a home, knocked on another couple's door, and robbed and murdered a, a elderly couple, tied them up execution style, and murdered them.
Oh my gosh.
My grandfather, as an incredibly talented, gifted artist, he had a photographic memory. He then went to the police and was able to sketch them, draw them to perfect detail because
Oh
of
my
his
gosh.
photographic memory of them. Um, and he was one of the key witnesses in the trial and eventual, like these men were sentenced to death. But he was one of the star witnesses that helped put these criminals away. And because of that whole thing, he was so concerned about retribution from family or friends or whomever of these criminals
Yeah.
that he and my grandmother packed up and moved to Oregon. So that's how they ended up in Oregon.
Wow. That could have been your grandfather, but had he not had the wherewithal of like having those street smarts, oh my god, that's like an episode of any cop show. Like I'm a very
And
keen
trusting your
NCIS.
instincts.
Yeah, like I was like I feel like I just watched an episode of NCIS without watching an episode of NCIS.
Isn't that crazy though? I mean, and it's so funny. I hadn't told that story to I have a very close group of friends that I've been friends with for 20 some odd years. And we had gotten together, like this was last year, and we're on this like walk at my buddy's ranch, and we're just kind of talking and BS and whatever. And I tell them the story, and I realized I never told my friends that story. And my wife knows it and stuff, but I've never really shared it. And here I am on a podcast sharing it with the
Here we
world.
go. Everyone's
Yeah,
gonna hear it.
yeah, but I mean, it's cool. It's just But what this comes back to is instincts and
Yeah.
trusting your instincts, and that's something that I've learned as an artist. Above else, I trust my instincts and my gut when it comes to my art and creating. And I know I whether no matter what anybody else says, I have to look myself in the mirror and know that I I want to make the best thing that I can make to the best of my ability, and I have to trust my instincts when I know um, I've hit that point. So as an artist, I paint every day.
Yeah.
I paint when I'm happy. I paint when I'm sad. I paint when I'm anxious. I paint um, when I'm confident. I paint through every single emotion a human can experience.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of practice, and I'm always trying to like smooth the edges. I'm always trying to get better. And so I trust that practice. I know what I'm aiming for. I know what I'm
Yeah.
aiming for as an artist. And I know that when I create a piece that goes above and beyond what I'm aiming for, I know that that's something truly special. But conversely, I know when something falls below and dips below that bar of what I'm aiming for.
Yeah.
So that's when it comes to trusting your instincts. So in a really roundabout way of um, a true crime episode. I'm gonna turn it back to trusting your instincts in art. But yeah, anyway, I feel like I'm rambling here. I feel when I get sometimes when
No,
I'm nervous,
no.
I ramble. So if I am, you gotta stop me, okay?
No, this is great because I think there's something interesting that you just said, and it's just like as an artist, you do know when you create something, you're like, this is the shit. This is amazing. You feel it, and then when you go maybe like the next painting or like say you're working on a series or collection, I know that like when I had an idea and I execute it, and then I go, oh, that one wasn't as exciting as the one before. Like it's not quite there, and you're like, do I even want to show it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
can I improve it? Do I just like cast it off as the redheaded stepchild? Like, it's just really interesting when you, as an artist, you already know it's not when you're painting it, it's when you step back and you're like, something's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting when I feel like every collection that I do, because I probably, I always paint in collections. I don't know if this is for you. There's always one in that collection that I go, it could stay, it could go, I could paint over it and I'd be okay with that. you know but it comes down to pure instinct.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what it is, but it's there.
Exactly, exactly. But it's also part of training and developing that instinct, you know?
Hmm.
It's like learning through repetition, like really like having developing that discerning eye, um, and knowing like, okay, this isn't right, but how can it be better? And
Yeah.
knowing what needs to change in order to improve it. And that's again, just through repetition. Um, and that's why I feel like when you start something new. Let's say you have for me, for example, I worked in the corporate world for 13 years before transitioning to become a professional artist. When you start something new, sometimes people might kind of look at you with the side eye and be like, well, you're becoming an artist now? That
You're like,
wasn't
wait,
you.
what?
Yeah, you did business development, dude. You worked in the experiential marketing world. What are you talking about? Like you're kind of met with sometimes some skepticism
Hmm.
but I didn't let that deter me. I believed in my own abilities myself enough to keep on pushing. But I also have an incredible support network of friends and family that have my best interest at heart and that want to see me grow, my family grow, and just want the absolute best for me. So I'm so grateful for that, obviously, but also the that ability to know when things are need improvement and when things need to can stay. You know.
Yeah. I think it's right. I want to ask you a question. Um, because, we don't have mom and dad used to be as a kid, would be the people that we'd go to. Hey, mom, look at dad. Mom, dad, see what I did. I go to my husband now, and my husband is a creative himself. And so it's like when I work on something, like I get excited. I was like, honey, come see what I just did. Honey, come, like when I'm super excited, I was like, I need your opinion on it. Like he's not an artist like a painter, but he does carpentry, he does woodworking, he understands art, line, balance, composition, texture, all that. And so, no, when he's telling me the truth and when he's telling me what I need to hear. And so I don't know. Do you go to your wife when you're working on something and you like need to take a step back and you're like, "Can you look at this? Can you tell me your thoughts? Like, is it good? Am I on? Do you think I'm on the right track? What do you think it needs? It's missing something."
Last night, last night, my wife is in bed. She had just gotten in bed. The lights were off, and I came bouncing in to like show her. I was like, "Hey, real quick," and like when I say the lights were off, she had her like um audiobook that she was listening to. She was seconds from being out, and I would never really normally disrupt her, but I had to pop in and ask her real fast. I was like, "Hold on, can I bring this in and show it to you real fast?" And so this is like, it's funny because for so many years I had coworkers. Like I'm a person that thrives. I feel like I thrive in collaboration. I thrive in creative
Yes.
environments. I'm an idea person. I love, like, I get a lot of energy off of that. And so,
Yes, me too.
but now as a professional artist, I don't have coworkers. I don't have colleagues. It's me, and I'm sure you can relate to that. And
Yeah.
so my wife, whether she did not, this was not a job that she signed up for, to be a sounding board and a art advisor. But it's kind of comes with the territory of being married to an artist. Like I trust her opinion implicitly, um,
Mhm.
without fail. Like I can just, when she comes into my garage studio, like she'll just open the door, and I can tell instantly how she looks at a piece, like
Mhm.
whether she is feeling it or not. And usually I kind of, if we're aligned, like in kind of our view of something, um, that's great. But if not, like I have no problem telling my wife, like, thank you for your opinion, but I respectfully disagree. Like,
Yeah.
but I do value it, and I do seek it, because I love her and she's my wife, and I'm so grateful for her that she has been so supportive of this career change.
Yeah, it's funny because you just said something like, their facial expressions. It's like, in the movie The Devil Wears Prada, Meryl Streep's character, Miranda
Hmm.
Presley, like when they go and look and they know her nods, her eye glances, whatever mean certain things. It's like the same with my husband. It's just like if he does this or if he like, yeah, it's just like, you're not feeling it. He's like, I didn't say that. I was like, your face did.
And that's it. Like that's all. I mean, because deep down, you probably, like, maybe you were feeling it or you weren't feeling it. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, okay, this is feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. Feedback is important
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
some degree.
Yeah. I love that. That's fun. So your pieces, they're big, beautiful, bold abstracts, and there's like a lot of movement in them.
Hmm.
There's a lot of abstracts that, I was trying when I was thinking this morning, like how to describe it. It's just like they're compacted movements that are like repetitive over the entire canvas. It's not like there are big movements, big strokes, but it's just like they're compacted all over so it really, really fills the canvas. And how did you come up with this style and the movement to create the way that you do?
Great question. Um, so I believe that my style is constantly evolving. And
Yeah.
when I say evolving, I mean that it's not there's this I can't remember the name of the book, but it's by Rick Rubin. He talks about the creative act. He talks about um, the concept of flow, and he talks about how um, the you plant these seeds like your entire life. You gather these seeds. For
Hmm.
me, gathering these seeds was growing up at my father's shop, being around my grandfather, being around that artistic life, gathering these seeds, gathering influences and inspiration here and there, and then you get take those seeds and then you experiment
Hmm.
and you try different mediums, different paints, different styles, see what feels best for you. Because for me personally, I believe that the idea of painting for me, I feel my best work is when it's done um, intuitively and with spontaneity and movement. That's when I believe I'm creating my best work. When I shouldn't have to be imposed. I shouldn't have to force it. When I'm forcing it, I know that I need to stop because
Yeah.
it's not going to end well. And so I have to embrace that idea of of flow and knowing that I'm just kind of like as a jazz musician or a rapper might freestyle. I like to kind of adopt that same kind of mentality as I'm painting,
Yeah.
be present. And um, so to answer your question, I believe that my style has come through a tremendous amount of experimentation. Um, my first 2 years that I was painting professionally, I painted in the neighborhood of over 400 pieces. And when I say that, I mean I would paint a piece, then as soon as I thought it was done, I would paint right over it. And then I just did that with canvas after canvas after canvas. And I started small. I would do on like 16 by 20, and I would just, I mean, if I could take this computer into my garage studio and show you, it's lined with canvases and pieces of artwork that I've done and done over and done over, and just to get that, like I said, repetition in, to
Yeah.
develop that.
Hmm.
So it's that and I that those first 2 years I was just painting to paint, to get it up, to get that workout in until
Yeah.
I felt like I didn't have to do that, to know that, okay, this is the right direction, this is where I should need to go, this is where God is leading me to go.
Hmm.
And that having that self-awareness is, I believe, crucial to an artist. Sometimes you have razor thin self-awareness. For me, sometimes I try to have deep self-awareness. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I get that. And it's interesting because like if you even like look at my sketchbooks or just random sketches from over time or paintings from a couple years ago, it's completely different than what I'm doing now. So it's just like we're building you as an artist, you're always building on blocks of what you have done before and what you have taught yourself and experienced and pushed through. And I always like to say that artists are also like musicians, and
mhm.
like we go through different like eras, like the Beatles first album is way different than the White Album, you know
Right,
and so it's just like we as artists, we don't do always do like the rinse and repeat
right,
same thing over again. And it's just
right,
like because life would be that would be boring, and then we wouldn't really be being creative. Like we wouldn't
right.
be using our gift and our talent to its fullest potential.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And I agree with that. That's something that I feel so strongly about, is that I believe that it is a gift and it is a talent. And for me personally, I believe it's a gift from God.
Hmm.
And I believe that everything that when I paint and when I use that gift, it's an offering to God,
Hmm.
out of his gift to me. It's honoring him by saying, you gave me this gift. Let me honor you by using it. And
Hmm.
so I believe that that's, and that's another area I feel so strongly about, is that that's something that you know, before the other art fair, before I got into the other art fair, my wife and I were talking, and I was like, okay, this is like, let's, we really kind of consider that to be a pivotal point in my artistic career. To be like, all right, is this, God, if this is where you want us to go and me to go, my career to go, show me. Open
Hmm.
this door, please. Open it and make it crystal clear. Don't. I need that. I need this guy. We prayed about that. And I'm not trying to get, all preachy and religious, but this is my
Yeah.
personal
But
beliefs.
you have that level of faith. I there's something that Steve Harvey says, because like Steve Harvey is a very religious person, but he's also a businessman, and he says one of the things that and my husband and I, we listen to like his snippets a lot, and one of the things that he says is that you can pray for these things, you can work hard and show up, but he just says, I'm going to butcher this totally. God didn't ask you to ask him how to figure it out. He just asked you to show up and do the work. He's the one that's going to figure it out for you. And you just have to have faith that whatever is supposed to happen and how it's supposed to happen will happen in time and how it's supposed to present itself.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's like the idea of that if things don't go the way that you perceive they should go, that's not a bad thing.
Hmm.
That's just how things are going.
Yeah.
And you have to like, I feel like I have to maintain that idea, like, because, you've heard the expression, like, it's, you don't sweat the small stuff because it's all small stuff, you know? And so I feel like, yeah, showing up is so essential, just to not be an artist, but just everything. Showing up as a
Yeah.
parent, showing up as a husband, showing up as a friend, all of it. Like, I say that each piece I'm trying to make better than my last. Well, I also want to make each interaction with my friends and my wife and my kids and my parents and everyone better than my last. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, just that desire to be better
Yeah.
and to paint better.
Yeah. I think that it, it's so true. And like, to touch on like this gift that's given, it's just like, for me personally, it's just like I believe that, you know I have been put through the experiences that I have. It's just like I was in an abusive relationship prior to this, but now I feel like I was put through that for a reason, for a purpose, and now I'm using my artistic voice to share that. But that is now my platform to say, to not just be like, oh, pity party on me, but to show others that you're going to survive. To use this platform to advocate for, women, to let them know that you're going to be okay, that you aren't alone. And I feel as artists, whether musicians or if you're an author or whatever, we get to use that human emotion, that empathy, those connections, those stories that we've shared to share with others. And I think that that's where our true gift lies. And if we don't, we're doing ourselves and the world a disservice by not sharing our stories to let everyone else know you're not alone.
I'm Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm sorry that you've experienced that,
Yeah.
but I find that, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Um, do you find that creating art is that part of is that a healing experience, or do you find it therapeutic, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I was always an artist even before that situation happened to me. But yeah, it's 100% therapeutic, especially working on this collection, because I'm pushing myself creatively into these new boundaries of creating, like, what if I'm like, it's a completely new style, whatever. And so not only, and I also do like poetry with it, so it's extremely cathartic
Mm,
for me, and I've made peace with what happened. I have forgiven myself, I've forgiven him, I have moved on. So it's not painful like it was, when it first happened. And I knew that I needed to do this back in 2018 when I got out. I am so far removed from it, with therapy, and just I'm in such a good place in my life now that I can now revisit it and still be in a healthy mindset. So,
it's
yes,
awesome.
it is extremely, extremely therapeutic for me in that sense. But art in general is. And I think that's, I see people who, I don't, because you have kids, and I can't create with my kid around. Like, I can't do it because you have to be 100% present. You have to be able to allow yourself to get into that flow state,
Hmm.
and to focus and to be able to put your best foot forward. So for me, with my little 1-year old running around, it's just like, I can't, nope, it's not going to happen today, or I have to try and do it when he's napping, or if my husband can watch him, or after he goes to bed, because I need to, and I have to put my headphones on. I have to have music on, or even sometimes I'll put these on and forget to put music on, and you
Same,
become present and you just
same.
block out the world, and you just are like, you just feel it in your chest, and you're like,
Mhm.
I am 100% present right now. I can
Exactly,
create to the best of my ability.
exactly. To go back to so one thing, I just
Sure.
think that's really awesome, that that you are using your gift to share your story, in the hopes of helping other people who are going through similar situations. And I think that's an amazing um, way to take something terrible into something positive. So
Thank you.
that's very, very admirable and cool.
Thank you. Thank you. So now that I've shared a story, there was a painting when I first met you at your booth, and there was one painting that I was 100% drawn to. You asked me which one's your favorite, and I said this one. And I said, I can't tell you why, but there's something about it. Was the energy of it, it was the colors. There was some, like, I didn't even know what the title was at this point, and I just said, I don't even remember what I said, but I just remember that I was so transfixed by this piece, and I asked you, is there a story behind it? And then you told me, and I started crying. Can
I
you
didn't mean to make you cry.
It's okay. I didn't mean to make you cry just now, and or in the beginning of the podcast. So, can you do you mind,
Yeah,
will you
yeah,
please
totally,
share
totally.
that story of that piece with us, the title, and how it came to be? Everyone, you
Absolutely.
might want to grab your tissues.
Well, to preface this, for for a year after this happened, I wasn't even able to talk about it, even though things ended well. I wasn't able to talk about it without crying. Um, so now that so I can do that now. It's so in it was in July of 2021, my wife was 8 weeks pregnant with our third child. Unexpected pregnancy. Well, I say unexpected, but whatever. So
Planned, not planned. Like,
exactly,
hey,
yeah,
if this happens, sure.
exactly, exactly. So we were refinishing the floors in our house. So my wife took the kids to her parents in Midland while the floors were being refinished. I stayed here. She was working from her parents' house, finished the day of work, and then she wanted to go on a run. Because exercise is her favorite release of just tension and energy. She needs that in her life to be just the person she wants to be. She needs that release. So she's on a run, and she starts kind of feeling lightheaded. And the next thing she knows, she wakes up and she's face down in on a road and can feel like the hot asphalt like against like her skin. And she's trying, and she can't really like her vision's blurry, but she hears a truck pull up and hears like footsteps running to her, and it was her. I'm like, it was her. It was her dad on his way home from work. Just happened to be driving home at that time and came across his daughter who had passed out and fallen in the road and ran to her. And the reason I'm crying right now is because I have a daughter. I can't imagine what that would be like for her father to see his daughter in that situation. So
Yeah.
anyway, he gets her to go immediately to the emergency room there in Midland, and the doctors check her out, and they don't really know why she passed out, but they run tests. Everything looks normal, and they're like, you need to when you get back to Dallas, you need to see a cardiologist because there's a family history of some heart issues. She had met with a cardiologist in her 20s. She knew she had a heart murmur, but it was like, just keep living your life, it's
Yeah.
going to be all good. So she just kept on doing her thing. First two pregnancies went fine. We're all good. So she goes, and this is now August of 2021, and she goes to they do a echocardiogram, and they're doing the echocardiogram, and my wife notices that the technician is taking what seems to be a long time. And my wife asks them, she's like, I know you're not allowed to say anything, but is everything okay? And the technician says, she goes, I do think the doctor will probably be calling you soon. So my wife's like, okay, that's kind of weird. That's not good. And so she gets up. She is leaving, and the cardiologist calls my wife when she's in the car on the way home from her cardiology appointment. And he tells her that your aortic valve is almost completely closed. You need to stop all physical activity immediately. You need to go to the Baylor Cardiac Heart Hospital as soon as possible. So we were kind of just like, what the heck is going on? We don't like have a lot of information. We just know that something's not good. So we got fast tracked to the front of the line. We were at the heart hospital that same week. And we met with doctors, and they told my wife and I that her aortic valve, she had not severe, she had critical aortic stenosis, which is the narrowing of the main valve in your heart that delivers blood to your whole body. Her valve was almost completely closed. They said to us then, they said that if you were not pregnant, you would be in immediate open heart surgery. But because you are pregnant, we can't do surgery at this time because you will lose the baby. And so we then met with several other. We met with doctors at UT Southwestern. We met with doctors at Presbyterian. We met with doctors, got lots of other opinions, and we were told several different things. But one of them being that they recommended that the pregnancy be terminated to save my wife's life because they believed that her heart could not handle um,
The
the
pregnancy.
pregnancy, much less a delivery.
Yeah.
My wife was completely asymptomatic up until this point. Did not have an issue, like completely asymptomatic. So anyway, so they decided to we decided to we went to doctors at Baylor, and they believed that because my wife's heart was otherwise strong, besides her aortic valve, and the heart and our baby's health was on track, and accordingly that they would see us basically weekly. They would meet my wife weekly, and the baby we tested every other week. But we were going to appointments from that point forward, um, the remainder of the pregnancy. And the goal was, they said, if we can get you to 6 months, if we can get the baby to viability, then we can deliver it, and we'll just then we will hope that there's not an emergent situation, and then we can deliver that baby. And then after you recover from that, then we'll do open heart surgery. So, but my wife made it. She cruised past that 6 month mark, and she made it made it to 37 weeks. Um, and then by this point, we knew that the baby, our son, was going to be a boy. And my wife, it was her idea. She chose the name. Gosh, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
She chose the name. She called me. She's like, I found a name for our son. I was like, okay. She's like, I want to name him Caleb. I was like, okay. And she's like, it means wholehearted. So that like, and during this time, I'm painting every day. I'm painting through all of these emotions. I am like I felt like daily I was on like in a pressure cooker,
Mm-hmm.
just like on the verge of a breakdown. And my wife was super strong. Like and I need to be strong for her. But
Yeah.
in my private time, like I would just go out to my car in the driveway and just like close the door and just like ugly cry, like just like because I didn't want to do it in front of her because I'm trying to be strong for her. I'm trying to be strong for our kids. They
Yeah.
know something's wrong with mom. They don't know what's going on. So anyway, but my wife made it to 37 weeks. And on February 22nd of 2022, she delivered our son Caleb successfully at Baylor in the ICU. Um, with a team of doctors. When we got moved up to the ICU, it was always the plan to be her delivered in the ICU. That was the plan. But they said, we're going to put you at the end of the hall in the biggest room so you have the most, so you're comfortable and stuff. And at the time, we're like, oh, that's so kind of them. They want to put us in the big room. That's so nice.
It's
Well,
for
come to
all the
find out,
doctors that needed to be there.
exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So she successfully delivered Caleb. And then that was on February 22nd, 2022. And then on um, and then on May the 6th of 2022, so shortly, just a couple months later, after she had recovered, she had full on open heart surgery and had her aortic valve replaced with a mechanical valve. Um, and she, a few months after that, she was back to running, and it all ended perfectly. But the piece that you're talking about was titled Evolving Rhythms,
Yeah.
and it was the rhythm of her heart. God, this is going to come across like such a. I feel silly because I told you that I could talk about this without crying, and here I am just crying.
It's hard
Uh,
not to. It's an emotional thing, and like it came across all the emotion that you're feeling now and the processing everything that all came across in this piece, and that I think is what's really really beautiful.
Thank you,
I was the fact that as a mother now and having my own pregnancy, my own complications and things, and to know like what you had to go through and your wife had to go through, you being able to process all of these emotions and then being able to put it on the canvas in a very articulate way, even though it was abstracted, you you did it so gracefully to the point where
thank
that
you.
piece sold, didn't it?
Right.
Right after me, after I started
Hmm.
talking to you, huh?
Yep. Right after. Yeah. Yeah, I did. And in fact, thank you for saying those kind words.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And that was the goal. You never know if it's the idea will properly translate from your head to your hands to the canvas and then to the viewer. You never know.
Yeah.
But the fact that that resonated is so gratifying.
Hmm.
So thank you for that. Um, and Yeah, that's one piece that was just that will forever. There's a couple more in our house. Like my wife, God bless her. Our house. So I basically have a gallery within my own home. Like all of our walls are, when a piece gets finished, it's the walls. Our house is cut. Every wall in my house is covered with pieces that are
Gotcha.
either works in progress or whatever. And so when you take a piece off the walls then look like Swiss cheese because I've put so many holes from hanging, from moving, from like that's it's and my wife is just like she's cool with it. Like she understands like this is you
Yeah.
know this is part of it. So but there is a piece though that I also that I painted during that time that she was like, hey, this one you can't we can't get rid of
Sell
this
it.
one because yeah, 'cause to her that piece speaks to her and her own
Yeah.
how she felt through that experience and yeah, so that was it. It all ended great. I mean, she's healthy and strong and alive, and the American Heart Association did a story on her, and they did a full feature on her, which was really cool. You should check it out, American Heart Association, Aaron Kidwell. You can see the story, but it's all she is she's a really strong, awesome, beautiful soul that I'm very grateful to have as my wife.
Yeah, I
And
met her.
I'm
She was
lucky to have.
lovely. I
Thank
met
you.
her briefly, and I got to meet your kids as well, and little Caleb, and you do have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
So, Zach, if people wanted to purchase your work, have a commission done, any of that, where can they find you?
So the best place probably to find me will be Instagram, Zack Kidwell Art. That's where I'm posting most frequently. You can also find me on Saatchi Art. You can also find my work on my own website, which is listed it's like a link tree, but it's the link in my Instagram. You can also just email me at Zack Kidwell Art. I currently do not have representation here within Dallas, but I'm looking at different opportunities. Um, but yeah, I am accepting commissions right now for the fall. And yeah, I do at home I do at home consultations with clients.
Oh, cool.
And also I'll be also have gallery days. They'll be launching this fall here at my home by appointment only on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where they can make an appointment, come see what I have available from 10 to 2, and shop that way.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on today's episode of the Artist Stoop. I knew having you on, it'd be an array of emotions, but it would also be very positive and happy. And I'm glad that you finally were able to come on. So everyone, I will make sure to include in the show notes all of Zach's informations where you can connect with him and hopefully purchase some of his amazing work. So thank you for coming on. We appreciate having you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so cool, and I'm so grateful to be able to talk with you. This is great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
And that, my friends, wraps up another colorful episode of The Artist Stoop. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their art and stories. If you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the next Stoop chat. And don't forget to spread the love. Share your favorite episodes with fellow art enthusiasts, and let's build this community together. Connect with us on social media at Jguze Studio and Jillian Zepeda Art for behind-the-scene peeks, artist spotlights, and a sneak peek at my own art. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep that creative fire burning. This is Jillian Zepeda signing off from the Artist Stoop. And remember, the world is your canvas, so paint it vividly.